There's a nation in the United Kingdom where a retiree can draw their state pension, their private pension, their ISA income, and pay zero extra income tax on almost all of it compared to their neighbours just a few hundred miles away. No catch, no postcode lottery, just the way the tax bands are set up. And most retirees have never even checked because they assume tax across the whole UK. Meanwhile, retirees in one part of the UK are handing over an extra £1,500, £2,000, even £3,000 a year in income tax on the exact same pension that someone in England would barely notice. And most of them have no idea because nobody sat them down and actually drew it out for them. Today, I'm ranking the places in the UK that are quietly costing retirees the most money, and the places that are quietly protecting your pension the best. Not based on where the sun shines, not based on what your neighbour told you down the pub, based on what actually happens to your state pension, your private pension, your ISA, and your savings in 2026. Quick disclaimer before we start. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial or tax advice. Everyone's situation is different, so speak to a regulated financial advisor before making any decisions. I'm Kevin, and this is Retired UK. Every week, I break down the tax traps and the strategies that protect your retirement, so if that's useful to you, hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss one. Now, let's get into it. The 3 places costing retirees the most. Number 3 on the worst list, Scotland. Now stay with me because this genuinely surprises people. Scotland has had its own income tax band since 2018, separate from the rest of the UK, and every single year the gap has quietly widened. Where England, Wales and Northern Ireland use a 20% basic rate, Scotland splits that into a starter rate, a basic rate and an intermediate rate. And once your income creeps past around £43,000, you're paying 42% in Scotland versus 40% in the rest of the UK. Picture 2 retirees, same private pension, £45,000 a year in drawdown. The one in Newcastle pays the standard 40% higher rate on the portion above the threshold. The one 20 minutes up the road in Berwick, just over the Scottish border, is paying 42% on that same slice, plus the intermediate band underneath it. That gap alone can run to £600, £700 a year, and it compounds every single year you're drawing your pension. Add on the fact that Scottish council tax bands haven't been revalued since 1991. So some retirees are stuck paying disproportionately high council tax on homes that would be valued completely differently today. And the picture gets worse. Beautiful country, some of the best scenery in Europe. But the tax maths needs a very honest look before you retire there purely on income tax assumptions people carry over from England. Number 2 on the worst list. Inner London and the Southeast commuter belt. This isn't a devolved tax difference. This is pure cost of living, eating your pension alive. The income tax rates are the same as the rest of England. But here's what nobody tells you. Council tax bands in London boroughs, combined with service charges on retirement flats and leasehold properties, and average council tax bills in parts of outer London running well above the national average. A retiree drawing £30,000 a year from a private pension, plus the state pension in a London borough, can lose a genuinely painful chunk of that, just to council tax and service charges before tax even enters the conversation. Then you add the cost of a TV licence, energy and grocery costs that run noticeably higher than the UK average, and a modest retirement income stretches nowhere near as far as it does an hour outside the M25. And number 1 on the worst list. Anywhere you retire without checking your personal allowance freeze. This isn't a place on the map, it's a trap that catches retirees everywhere in the UK. But it hits hardest for people who assume I don't earn much, so I won't pay tax. The personal allowance has been frozen at £12,570 since 2021, and it's staying frozen. Meanwhile, the full new state pension has been rising every year with the triple lock. Do you see what's happening here? The state pension alone is edging closer and closer to that frozen threshold. Add even a modest private pension or some savings interest on top, and thousands of retirees who've never paid income tax in their life are being pulled into paying it for the first time. Not because they got richer, but because the goalposts stood still while their pension moved. This is called fiscal drag, and it is quietly the biggest tax increase most UK retirees will never notice happening to them. the places protecting retirees' pensions best. Now let's flip it, counting down the places doing right by retirees. Number 3. Wales. Welsh income tax rates currently mirror England's exactly 20%, 40%, 45%. But here's the part people miss. Average house prices in most of Wales sit well below the UK average, which means lower council tax bills in cash terms even at the same band, and lower stamp duty if you're downsizing into retirement. Combine that with genuinely excellent and often cheaper healthcare access outside the main cities, and a pension that would feel squeezed in the southeast suddenly stretches a long way further. Number 2. Northern Ireland. Same UK income tax bands as England and Wales, so no surprises there. But Northern Ireland consistently has some of the lowest average house prices and lowest council equivalent rates bills anywhere in the UK. A retiree who sells a home in the southeast and buys the equivalent property in County Down can release a genuinely life-changing amount of tax-free equity and then live on noticeably lower fixed housing costs for the rest of their retirement. The one honest downside, healthcare waiting lists have historically run longer here than the UK average, so that's a factor to weigh, not ignore. Number 1, mid-sized towns in the north of England and the Midlands. This is the one most people scroll past because it doesn't sound exciting. No special tax break, no devolved rate, just the standard England income tax bands. But that's exactly the point. You get the same 20% basic rate as everyone else in England and Wales, combined with council tax bills, house prices, and everyday costs that sit meaningfully below the national average. Picture a retiree with a £28,000 private pension plus the full state pension. In a town like this, their income tax bill is identical to what they'd pay in London. But their council tax might be £1,000 to £1,500 a year less. Their house cost a fraction of the London equivalent, freeing up savings. Their day-to-day costs are lower across the board. Same tax rules, completely different outcome, purely because of where the pound goes further. What changed for 2026? 2 things retirees need on their radar this year. First, the personal allowance freeze is now confirmed to run through to 2028, so that fiscal drag problem I mentioned earlier isn't going away. If anything, it gets tighter every year the state pension rises and the allowance doesn't. Second, ISA allowances remain at £20,000 a year. An ISA income stays completely outside income tax and outside your personal allowance calculations entirely. That means retirees who've built up ISA wealth alongside their pension have a genuine lever to pull. Drawing income from an ISA instead of a pension in a given year doesn't touch your tax bands at all. If you haven't looked at the order you draw your income in, state pension, private pension, then ISA, that sequencing decision alone can be worth real money every single year, regardless of which nation or region you live in. Bringing it together. Here's what this all comes down to. There is no single best place to retire in the UK. Wales and Northern Ireland win on raw cost of living and housing value. Northern England and the Midlands win if you want London-level services without London-level bills. Scotland can still be the right call if the lifestyle matters more to you than the extra couple of £100 a year. You just need to go in with your eyes open, not with assumptions carried over from England. The smartest move isn't chasing a headline about the best place to retire in the UK. It's sitting down, working out your own numbers, your state pension, your private pension, your ISA balance, your likely council tax band, your healthcare needs, and seeing where they actually land. Now you know which parts of the UK protect your pension and which ones quietly take a bigger bite, but picking the right place is only half the job. The other half is making sure you're drawing your income in the right order, so you're not paying more tax than you have to wherever you live. That's exactly what I'm covering in next week's video on the 3 pension drawdown mistakes costing UK retirees thousands. So make sure you're subscribed for that one. This has been Kevin for Retired UK. If this helped you picture your own retirement a bit more clearly, hit like. It takes 1 second and it helps this reach more retirees who need to see it. Subscribe if you haven't already and drop a comment. Which part of the UK are you retiring in and what's your council tax band? I read every comment and the most common questions become future videos. See you in the next one.